Hello, welcome to my third video, opening with a shot of the huge mess on my little table here, my dirty paint water. Oh, and then me bumping the table. This is the kind of quality you can expect from me from here on out. But you do get a little peek of Pip's little snoot there. That's why I left that part of the footage in. Alright, so what I'm doing in this video is working on a character design commission. I basically get a Pinterest board or a little description from a client about what kind of character they would like, and I try to come up with a design for it for them. So I got my little notepad here and I'm writing down in bullet points the kind of things that they mentioned, or sometimes I also do just my own sort of instinctual thoughts, or when I saw the images on their board or things like that. And this is just so I don't forget, because I've definitely done this before where someone specifically wanted something that I just forgot about while I was drawing, and then at a later stage I'd just be like, oh Jesus, and I have to add something or change something. Therefore, sticky notepad that I'm going to keep in sight. This is a commission for a sort of undead looking tiefling, very goth vibes I got from the Pinterest boards. Usually it kind of depends on what the request is, but usually I will make my own separate sort of inspiration folder with just things that I think would suit the character, or, you know, pieces of clothing I like or things like that. I actually didn't do that for this one because I had a pretty... I mean, at this point where you're seeing in the video, I did not have a very good idea for it, but later on when I start doing a digital sketch, that's when I have a pretty good idea of what I want it to look like from my own lived experiences looking at pictures of cool goths. Got my color erase pencils to do the sketch with. These were so hard to get in Holland. It was a nightmare, but they're really nice. Probably the best. I have a Faber-Castell erasable pencils as well, but I think the color erase, the Prismacolor ones, they feel nicer. They're a little more pigmented as well when you put them down, but still very, very easily erasable. I've sped up this part of the sketching process because I am very slow at drawing. I've cut out parts as well where I was just, you know, looking out the window, pondering about what really makes a goth, and then going back to my drawing and thinking, oh god. It's sometimes kind of tricky to draw characters that face straight forward like this. Obviously, if you draw digitally, you have symmetry tools and things like that, but you do not when you're drawing on paper, and I'm very grateful in this instance that I can't flip this, because I'm sure it would be very wonky. It's fine though, it's only my first sketch. I'm trying not to be too hard on myself. I also try to keep my sketches pretty loose, like I don't go too crazy on the details. I don't always succeed at this, but it helps with sort of getting distracted or bored if I don't spend too long on each stage of the process. So my lining here as well with the fine liner, it's pretty rough. I knew this wasn't going to be my final, and I wasn't even sure that I liked this that much, so I didn't want to spend too much time fussing over it. My ideas hadn't really, you know, crystallized that well at this point. I was just thinking I wanted a sort of square-shaped face, and the horns were sort of directly taken from one of the images in the Pinterest board that the client sent me. Horns are always kind of tricky, because obviously they belong to animals that have very differently shaped skull than us. So you have to think about how it would sit on a person's face, person's head, and obviously what would look good as well. They're also always such twisty shapes, like very like you have to have a certain sort of brain setting to be able to properly comprehend how you're supposed to draw them. For me it helps, like, if I'm indicating sort of which part of the structure is the front, like textured. I mean, both sides are going to be textured, but the way that I indicate it is if I put lines on certain parts of the horns first, grooves, then it really helps me understand better how it's existing in the space. So after I was done with this, I wrote down what I liked about it, and then I thought the horns were, I mean, they're totally wonky the way I've drawn them, but I figured they would look nicer if they were sitting closer to the skull. Like, this makes, the way I have them here now is very wide set, makes it like he's got a rectangle on his neck if you put it in a box, which I didn't think looked that good. It probably also had to do with the way I did the hair. I wanted to do something like an undercut or some kind of mohawk, but I ended up with something very different. For now though, I'm doing just another headshot, different angle, because then I couldn't get mad at myself about it being horribly asymmetrical. Different horns, although I still found them to be kind of too wide set. Still the same long hair that I ended up not really liking. So basically you get to see me draw something that I didn't end up liking very much. But, you know, it's really good to just include all the steps of the process. There's things I like about it still. My lines are getting like choppier and choppier though, because I was already thinking this ain't it. Yeah, I like that jaw. Very powerful. I always like square jaws though. Square jaws, dimples, moles. I really have to hold myself back from certain design elements that I just really like, and that I give all to my characters, which I talked about this in my last video too. You can see as well here that I'm kind of leaving the nose for last. I have real trouble still with drawing facial features, and if I'm working digitally, I fuss over it so much. There's a lot of redrawing going on, and I just look, it doesn't look horrible, right, but it just doesn't look how I want it to look, and then I ruin it even more. So, you know, let's forget about that nose that I drew there. And yeah, I was thinking short hair, and then I went with it digitally, because I had a pretty clear image in my head, but I wanted to do it without a kilo of eraser dust all over my desk, and myself, and my dog, my cat. So to Procreate, I went. I was able to do this pretty quickly, because I had just an image in my head of what I wanted to look like. I wanted it to have a big coat, but I also thought that would obscure too much of the design, or the underlying layers, especially the harness that I wanted to add, which means that that one's on a different layer. And yeah, oh yeah, I transferred it. I used my iPad as a light box, actually. Transferred to cardstock. Thought I was recording, but I wasn't. So we're skipping that step this time. Hopefully I'll be able to record some of that. I don't know how interesting it is, because technically it's just sort of tracing my sketch, but I'll see. I also have to see how well it records. But yeah, here again, it's the Color Ace pencil. I added some ink, I think it was, for shading, just to make it look nicer to me, since I figured I would be sticking it in my sketchbook, and I wanted it to have a bit of interest. Also, I ended up cutting out quite a couple of parts of the lining process, because as you can see here, I'm in frame technically, but I'm kind of doing it a little bit clumsily, like it's not in the center of the screen. I'll have to pay attention to that more in the future. It's definitely, I mean, it's something that I never had to do before, right? So just takes some getting used to. I didn't notice while I was recording the shadow that my hand was casting on the paper, because I tend to draw in the evening, and I have a ring light to light it up, at least so you guys can see, and I think that looks fine. It just casts that shadow of my hand. I'll have to see what I can do about it. Maybe just make it so that the shadow falls sort of beneath my hand. Well, I have to see anyway. Yeah, here's me drawing this, lining this harness that was one of my first thoughts of a design element that I wanted to add. The big coat, the harness. Usually, like I said before, I tend to do a little bit more research, but because I had those two things in my head, I figured that it would be okay just, starting. If I ever felt like I needed some more inspiration or it was missing something, I would have gone out and looked for references and things like that, but I think it ended up pretty nice looking, I guess. Again, I'm inching ever closer. Ooh, wow, I actually noticed that time. Look at me. I'm a real professional. I think it was because I cut off drawing the hand the first time I made a video, so I was extra aware of it this time. It can't happen again. Not like this. I wish I was better at drawing hands though, you know. I'm fine, I mean they look like hands, but some people are so good at drawing like such emotive hands. Stuff like that is why a reason why I want to commission other artists usually, if it has some detail like that I really like. Generally I do like people who can depict emotions and intimacy and things like that really well. Things that I would like to be good at, but I don't think I am very good at it. I need more practice. That's always the way it is, I guess. Practice. Until you can draw hands that say, I love you. The hands that I draw just say that I like drawing pointed fingernails. That's why it's good when people ask me to draw them at tiefling. They were so fun. Different horns, different tails, lots of cool skin colors usually. Although I do have trouble with eyes sometimes. I mean, I have trouble with them in general. This is a video of me listing off all the things about drawing that I find difficult. But eyes are definitely. I don't think I've found a way that I like drawing them yet, to be honest. I'm still trying out different things, and until I found it, I'm not gonna be satisfied with it. They're just hard. You know, pupils are hard to put them in the right position. I'll talk about something I do like, and it's the way that I drew those folds on the socks. It kind of reminds me of when I watched that movie 1917 about the two soldier guys going to deliver a very important message, and there are scenes of them going through no man's land, and the entire time that stuff was on scene, I was just thinking about how much could these old-timey shoes and these bandages that went up their legs like socks, how much mud can they really withstand? I mean, this is why they all had trench foot. And that's why I gave this tiefling sturdier looking shoes, because of those two boys in World War One who came before, and definitely probably would have died of infection if other things had not happened in the meantime. Talking about World War One movies now to avoid talking about how I find drawing shoes very difficult, as I find with a lot of other things when it comes to drawing. But shoes are for sure very strange shapes. I think part of why a lot of people seem to have trouble with shoes and legs as well to a lesser extent is because I at least got really used to drawing upper bodies and never drew shoes. I drew a lot of Dragon Age elves, probably because they didn't wear shoes. It did help me get a little better at drawing naked bare feet, which are also very weird, especially if you draw them from difficult angles. But shoes, oh shoes. One day. I mean, it helps a drawing so much, I feel like, if the shoes and feet in general look right. Just shoes complete the drawing. You know, I'm at risk of sounding like a feet guy, but I'll take that risk. Just this once. Later on, when you see the footage of me coloring this digitally, I just scooched the tail over just a little bit to hide that part of the foot that I wasn't happy with. That's the magic of digital editing, baby. I keep looking over at the head, and I can't remember if I ever ended up drawing the eyes in. I think I did. I didn't do the nostril, and that came to bite me in the ass a little bit later. I just thought it looked nice and subtle in the sketch, but I should have drawn it. I mean, it's fine. Look, I drew it digitally, and who knows, it might have gone horribly wrong if I tried to draw it on the sketch and I wouldn't have been as happy with it. It looks really nice right now. I usually stick them in my sketchbook with some washi tape, and also some real strong tape to keep it in there. And it definitely, it helps if stuff like this ends up looking nice. It feels very inspiring if I open my sketchbook and things look nice. You know, I don't hate every page that I look at, nice and colorful and varied. Though it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, I guess, because that means there's a bit more pressure on me in my sketchbook to make it look good. Which, I mean, I try to focus on the process and have fun actually drawing, but, you know, you can't always do it. And here we have the fully lined, eyeless tiefling sketch. I'm gonna take it back into Procreate. I think stuff like the shading that I did on the sketch actually is kind of hinders me when I'm working on it digitally, because it obviously shows up. It's harder to remove. Easiest is if it's just a white piece of paper with black lines on it, then it becomes very easy to clean up. But it's okay. I mean, it's, you know, for my own enjoyment, for the way it looks on paper in my sketchbook. It's much better if I fancy it up a little bit. So yeah, for these commissions I render the skin, and I color in the rest of the character with mostly watercolors and some details in pen, you can see so much flashing, and the upper layer with all the other additional things that I drew, the big coats that I was definitely looking forward to adding. It's a big, really nice shape, I think, on top of the more detailed underlayers. It's nice contrast, I think. I'm detailing here, I'm adding the grooves to the horns, and then I figured, you know, goths, they wear ripped jeans, and the kind of poofiness of the pant legs was bothering me, so that was a good solution. I added them, made them fitted, added some rips. Yeah, there we have it. Please let me know if you like this kind of video, if you have any questions or suggestions, or just anything at all, really. And if you ended up watching till the end, thank you so much.